All right, it is 4:05, which means that we will be starting the webinar. First of all, I need to share some bad news. Unfortunately, Philipp got sick today, which means that I'm going to take over the webinar. We have been building the slides together, so therefore there will not be any issue. I'm curious where everybody is joining from. I would like to see some interactivity, so if you can just quickly share it in the chat. I'm always curious to see where actually everybody's joining from. We are, for example, based in Vienna. All right, so normally Philipp would have been giving this webinar, so therefore you also every now and then see a link to Philipp. Honestly, Philipp is really good at giving webinars as well as just in his craft as an SEO and AI search consultant. So although Philipp is not here today, I would definitely recommend to scan the QR code, reach out to him when you want to talk about AI search. This is the overview of the agenda for today. We're going to start with AI search attribution. Then we're going to go to the reporting pyramid. Thereafter, we're going to check out the typical examples of inputs in AI search. Then we're going to go to how to frame the story. 5, we're really diving into the custom dashboards within Rankscale. And at the end, we will dive into Data Studio. Data Studio is the new name again for Looker Studio. They're switching, I have the feeling, every few years. So first of all, AI search attribution. We have 4 different paths of attributing potential conversions, demos to AI search initiatives. The first one, very easy, the click-through. So the AI engine refers. And then, of course, we can see where they come from. Do they come from ChatGPT, from Perplexity, from Claude? You can check this in your Google Analytics as well as in your server logs. Then we have the zero-click path, which means that we can check a branded search lift. So we can potentially spot an increase in branded queries on Google, on Bing. Nonetheless, I need to mention here that this is, of course, more an approximation. There is no one-on-one correlation with, for example, an improve in sales or increase in sales. So therefore, also just see this as a generic metric, not as the metric to completely build your case around. Then, of course, we have a potential increase in direct traffic. This is also, in my opinion, in the same category as the branded search lift. And then the last one is self-report at purchase. Not only at purchase, but also, for example, at demos. We, for example, really have started implemented. People that are using Rankscale will also have noticed that we had 2 new banners when they logged in because we did not have it yet in the past, so that we actually know where they are coming from. And then we were happy to see that actually a lot of our clients, they found us via Gemini, via ChatGPT. And then, of course, it is way easier also when you're building your case to state this is the amount of conversions that actually was created, was influenced by AI search. What I also want to mention there is don't stare yourself blindly on, for example, the referrers, because what we notice actually is that at the self-report is often way higher than what you would expect if you just look at your server logs. So keep that in mind, please. We're going to go to the next slide. The reporting pyramid, very important here to mention is, and I think we can all speak from experience, depending on which kind of level you are, you need the nitty-gritty details because you need to act on it, or you just need to be in the loop about the performance of, for example, this initiative. And then we start, for example, with the C-suite, with the board. What is the most interesting for them? And this is something that you can share monthly or bi-monthly, just in general, the visibility score trend. And then always differ between branded and non-branded prompts. It is very easy to just share one visibility score, and then you have like the blurred branded and non-branded prompts in there. Nonetheless, this doesn't say anything, because normally on a branded prompt, you should have a high AI visibility score. This is, for example, the result of, if I'm correct, Mint Mobile. And what you actually see here, have a strong entity issue, potentially even a crawlability issue, because when a potential user, potential prospect is actively looking for their brand, they only have a 72% AI visibility score. So that's also why I highlighted it in red. And then the second thing that I would always recommend to share with C-suite is just the competitor leaderboard. This screenshot is from our custom dashboards, a feature in Rankscale. And it is just very helpful to, for example, show leadership. Where are we actually standing in comparison to our competitors? You can just make a screenshot or share this specific dashboard with them and have a very, very simple sentence there. We move from X percentage to Y percentage. Now we are still ahead or behind of another competitor that I care about. And then they are in the loop. They know whether it is working out or not. And they also know whether there should be a little bit more push behind it. Then when we go to the marketing lead or the head of SEO, what is really important here is to actually show them the entire funnel coverage, because if you just show one score once again, it's already good that you have a non-branded overview there. Nonetheless, it is important that everybody understands actually, all right, how are we performing on the informational queries, on the considerational queries, as well as on the transactional queries, because not every prompt, every query is worth equal. The later, of course, in the funnel phase, the more interesting it is to have a high visibility score there. Then what a marketing lead is often also interested in to notice is the visibility score per AI engine and also the reputation trajectory. Why do I mention the reputation trajectory? Because this is often a bigger initiative. If you, for example, note that your sentiment has a very low score, or let's just say in general, a score of below 60 to 65%, it means that you need to work on this. Nonetheless, this also requires more PR activities. It is often something that just sinks in or sinks through later. So therefore, you need to start on time with this before your sentiment is really, really low. So that's the reason why reputation trajectory is in there as well, because it takes more time to fix this. And then we're going to go to the practitioner, the specialist. I would just recommend, of course, give them access to Rankscale so they have all the chosen metrics, all the potential flexibility, configurability available so they can zoom into everything that matters. And for example, what we have at Rankscale, and I don't think that so many people are aware of this functionality, but if you zoom in on a specific search term, you click on the engine, you can actually get specific recommendations from our Rankscale Scout to improve your AI visibility score there. We provide you content tips, we provide you citations tips, we provide you potential sentiment tips, so that in that case, they just need to press that button and they get an overview of actions that they can take. And this is really, really important. I often see it overlooked, but when you just share a report, it is interesting. You get the status quo, but you need to derive actions from the reporting, because otherwise it is just an as-is score. It is very little informative to understand what somebody is going to do with it otherwise. So make sure that you have the score in there, you have this report, and then state how are we going to fix it. Without actions, it is just something not that valuable. And another thing that I quickly want to mention is never report too many metrics. It is better that you have too little metrics, let's just, so to speak, maybe just one or two, than to have a complete chaos of metrics. If you have a complete chaos of metrics, people don't know where they need to look. And therefore, it just does not become informative. Also, it is very important to have this storyline that is capable of being followed by somebody who is reading it. And if you just throw 5 to 6 different metrics at them, it can be overwhelming and they don't even remember what was said. Another very important one, especially when it comes to the C-suite or the board, anchor it to a competitor or to a benchmark. What I see working very well in practice is that you really compare it to, or like anchor it to a competitor that they have very strong feelings about. All right. So never report too many metrics and anchor it to a competitor that potentially your leadership has strong feelings about. Some typical examples of inputs for AI search. So, hey, we published an X amount of pages and these got also crawled. We refreshed a Y amount of content pieces. We contacted different domains content owners because we noticed this is important for PR. So we want to be mentioned on that specific page. We call it nowadays mention building. Then make sure that you have a review management potential action that you can take. Optimize your hosting infrastructure. And then another potential action to take is to increase the citation worthiness of your specific content. So that therefore that content is just being sourced way more by AI search engines because it is just more valuable. These are basic content tips. Nonetheless, the amount of times I need to repeat this is actually mind-blowing sometimes. How do we actually frame the story? At Rankscale, I quickly showed it here. At Rankscale, we have this dashboard at the beginning, and there you have almost all of the metrics on that would be interesting to share. And depending on how you're actually performing, you need to share different metrics, of course. So let's say you're invisible, you're new to GEO, just lead to the detection rate. Because, for example, if your detection rate is even low, it means that you have a very, very big problem. Therefore, it's going to be easier normally to ask budget to go from invisible to at least becoming detected. If you directly state, hey, we need budget from invisibility towards a dominant player in AI search, you're also creating the wrong expectations. Then if you have some early traction, just lead with the visibility score trend that they know, all right, what we are doing, what you are investing in is actually paying off. And then the moment that you're defending, I would always argue to go with the top 3 visibility because it still states, hey, we are a strong category leader. And therefore, you can very easily communicate this to your boards, to leadership. And also, when it is dropping, you get a, how should I say it? When it is dropping, the top 3 visibility, it is on one side, it is very related to, hey, we were a category leader. And on the other side, hey guys, we really need to start focus on this because we're losing our top position. All right. So this is information that you can find in the dashboard. And this is a real example, actually. You can also, instead of benching it towards multiple competitors, just show like one competitor that is clearly investing right now in AI search and is also clearly outperforming you. A quick tip, just ask your leadership or ask your potential clients which competitors do you actually care the most about, and then just show charts that only show these. 4 dashboards that, in my opinion, are always interesting to set up. First of all, is the funnel health. I think this is quite a hygienic thing. Then niche dominance. It is way easier to dominate a niche than to dominate an entire segment, an entire category. If you, for example, are just starting out with AI search, just focus on the niches because there you can show your traction faster. Then the engine gap, what we notice right now, for example, B2C, they are mostly using ChatGPT, Gemini, and potentially Perplexity. It could be the case, for example, that you are scoring very, very well on ChatGPT, but bad on Gemini. Nonetheless, your users, your audience is also here. So therefore, make sure they have an overview of how you're performing on the different engines. And then, of course, some client or scenario proof. This is really focused on prompts. And I would say it is quite similar to a niche that are long tail, that are very specific, a very specific scenario, because there actually you also have the capability to improve your AI visibility quite fast because there is so little competition against it. So let's dive into custom dashboards. What is maybe interesting to note, or you can make your own custom dashboard, or at Rankscale, we also provide templates that you can just follow. So I'm going to quickly go to the Rankscale dashboard. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the brand, let's say, let's go to Leica Mobile. Let's go to Mint Mobile. Here at the beta features, you have the functionality custom dashboard. If I want to create a new dashboard, I just click here, new from template, and then I can decide which kind of template that I want to use. For the agency users, what you can also do is you can just create this template for yourself and then import it from another brand. So that is also a possibility. Let's say I'm interested in an executive overview, which is gonna use this template, executive overview. And then here I see a quick executive overview. What you will see is that the data is a little bit older. But here, for example, you can see the visibility score mentions share of voice performance over time. I would strongly recommend if you have Rankscale or if you don't have Rankscale, make an account and just start to play with these custom dashboards. All right. Then if I want to create a new custom dashboard myself, because potentially I only want to show specific information, I'm going to click on new blank view. Let's say funnel health, although this is a template, I'm going to recreate it myself. And I'm just going to focus actually on branded versus non-branded. So the thing that I showed here, this one, we're going to recreate it. So here I can click on add widgets. I'm going to go to visibility score. And then I click here on this little settings button. I can decide here for myself which kind of metrics that I would like to show. We can go from visibility score to top 3 visibility. We have different kind of charts. We have some charts that are like some metrics that are focused on the competition, engines, topics, different citations, as well as different sentiment. Shopping is also available here. Sources as well. And then editorial, this just is that we give you the option, the possibility to add some text, add some notes. Maybe it is easier then for the person that sees this custom dashboard to interpret what he is looking at. So let's actually go to the sources. And then what we can do here is change the title to top source URLs. I can change the background. Let's make it this color. I can change the description. I can decide actually where do I want to mention this. Let's say webinar reporting. And then I can even add a button to it. Click on save. And then here I see my top sources. What I also can do is, let's go to visibility score. I'm gonna select the tag non-branded. I'm gonna put here non-branded. I'm gonna save it. And here, for example, you have the option to add different cells. And you can also, for example, add different rows and decide how many columns you have in there. What I can also do is I can share this as a PDF, or I can just share via this one. I then click on custom dashboard only. If I only want to share this, I can decide here which specific dashboards that I want to show. And let's go to funnel health, create link. And I'm going to get and put this link into our chat. So you can also access it yourselves. So that's our custom dashboards in Rankscale. One way to report. Another way to report, of course, is the data studio as well as the sharing button. You can decide for yourself where you or which steps you want to share. You can click create link if you just want to start with the current filters, or if they're only allowed to, for example, see the tags of non-branded, I can select the tag here. and maybe they're only allowed to see one topic. I could select one of the topics that would be listed here. I click on this one. I click on the lock current filters. I click on create link. And then I will copy it. I'll also show how it looks like. Then I can just go through everything myself. What is important here is this is only read access, not write access. I can still click through everything. Let's go to competitors. I'm going to click here on my variations. Oops, I can't click on it, but at least you have read access. And I'll also put this into the chat. Does anybody has a question already? I'm very happy to answer it. No questions yet. Also, during the next phase, if you have a question at the end, we have a Q&A, so then you can just ask them as well. All right? So another way to report is, of course, Data Studio. Very important. Data Studio is sometimes also mentioned or like called Looker Studio. The name is changing every now and then. I do have the feeling that with how the wind changes direction, they're also naming or different, like making their name different. So they renamed it from Data Studio to Looker Studio, and right now it's Data Studio again. And it is used by many companies as a unified hub for different data sources that get combined to tell the full story. That is also something that we will see. We have it on our roadmap to, for example, add your Google Search Console, your GA4, your server logs to all integrate into Rankscale. But right now, a potential workaround there is to have all of this data flowing into Data Studio. What are the advantages of Data Studio? It allows for the combination of different data sources. Honestly, it's here to stay because there is just so much backing of it. It's so big. Whereas if you use other reporting tools, it could actually be that they just disappear because potentially their funding dries up or they're not profitable. And they're also there are a lot of free templates that you can use. What are some of the disadvantages? It is quite time intensive to set up and learn. There is a steep learning curve at the beginning. Nonetheless, right now with AI and YouTube, it can help you a lot. And especially with, for example, Claude, if I'm correct, Claude right now can also work in your browser. I don't know if you have access to it, but I actually expect that Claude can then also just set up the Data Studio within your browser. Another thing is the loading times. I get quite frustrated by it because it just takes a long time to load, and it also has a more sluggish user interface, and it has less immediate flexibility than, for example, self-created solutions. For example, MCPs. I really like to use it nowadays for reporting, or for example, the Rankscale API to make some dashboards automatically in Claude. Of course, you can decide for this yourself. What is an advantage with Data Studio is that you can still share it. I can't share, for example, my dashboards that I create in Claude Code only by screenshotting them. So this is the hypothesis of Philipp, but Philipp expects that Google at one point will also allow something like conversational analytics. Let's, for example, look at PostHoc. They also have this conversational analytics where you can just ask a question and it creates a dashboard for you. Philipp expects the same to happen from Google. Honestly, I think at the moment, Google is a little bit very much focused on the AI search race, but I also fully vouch this hypothesis. Which other data can you match, for example, with Rankscale in the Data Studio? You can have like Google and Bing AI insight citations, referral traffic that comes from these search engines, bot accesses, so like the crawler activity, the log files, branded and direct search traffic, branded search traffic via Google Search Console, or the Bing Webmaster, and then direct traffic via the GA4. And then, of course, also the attribution, the self-reported attribution at some key touch points in your buying journey. There are, of course, way more options to connect and add different data sources to really tell the entire full story. Nonetheless, I think with these 5, we have reached the Pareto principle, which means we have hit the most valuable drivers. And once again, a quick reminder, we don't just want to report, the output, we also want to report the input. Make sure that you log what you have done. And for example, at Rankscale, you can add pins on your dashboards to see, hey, we invested here in some PR articles, we brushed up our content here, and that then you can also see a potential and hopefully an increase in your AI visibility. So let's kick into Data Studio, how to set it up specifically. Very important, we have a Rankscale help page, which will really help you speed up setting up the Data Studio reports. We have a few available templates as well as data pools. So we have two distinctions. We have the search term execution records. If you go to the help center, you will find exactly what is all in there. Nonetheless, search terms are just really in depth on what is happening with the search terms, whereas the dashboard metrics is a little bit more high level, a little bit more focused on the reporting itself. So number one, we go to the integrations settings on our dashboard. Then we should create an API key. Then we should add the connector, and then we should start to create a report or open one of the templates that is available in Rankscale. And right now we're gonna show some screenshots of how we can do it. And here we can see Wingmen tools. Once again, this is something that Philipp prepared. Very grateful for this. And for every now and then, you will also see the Wingmen in the Rankscale screenshots that we have here. Once again, reach out to him. He's an amazing person and he knows a lot about AI search. So what you need to do is you would need to go. Leonard, you raise your hand. I can't see it anymore. So then I think the issue is over. So what you do is you go to Rankscale, you go to the settings, you go to integrations, and then you see your API key here. I'm not going to show it, otherwise everybody has access to my data. But for example, if you have leaked your API key somewhere, you can also just always regenerate it. So integrations. And then if you are, for example, interested in creating a Data Studio report for, let's say, the brand Leica Mobile, then we should go down here. And then we should look for Leica Mobile. And then we need to copy this. Just put it somewhere in your notes. Same with the API key. And then we can start to configure everything. All right. So this is the brand ID code so that the Data Studio actually knows, all right, from which dashboard in Rankscale should I right now pull the data from. And then we would do the following. We go here to the Help Center. Here we have the Looker Studio just above the MCP description. And then let's go to the next slide. We would scroll down. Here you find all the information about the Data Studio connector. And then what we need to do is you would click on this one, Add Connector. And then here you would need to enter your API key. As you can see, this is not my real one. And here you would need to put your brand ID. I will need to go to the next slide because I'm not going to paste these ones during a webinar. Nonetheless, what is really important is at the next screen. So the moment I click here on Connect, you will need to change the following. And this is very obvious. You will find it very easily. You need to go to timestamp. And currently it is set to date, hour, but you need to change it just to date, Datum in auf Deutsch. Because otherwise, if you, for example, have these connectors set to date, hour, they're not being aggregated per day. They're then being aggregated per specific day and the hour. And they need to do that 3 times. Why do you need to do that 3 times? Let me go back to this one. It is not visible here. Nonetheless, what you will see, and I can't do it right now, but the dashboard Let's go to this one. Dashboards metric has 3 different sources. So we need to make this for each specific source that is listed. Just save your data source as, let's say, brand overall that metrics, and then the other 2 different data sources that you have. Here you can see it, topic engine breakdown. And then there is also that's topic breakdown as well as engine breakdown. So just make sure that you create all of these 3. Then we would need to click on View Template. So I'm going to click on View Template. And then here you can see an example dashboard. This is just populated with some data that we have. But of course, this is not the dashboard report that you're interested in. So let's go to Make a Copy. And then let's select Leica Mobile Overall Brand Metrics. Copy report. And here we see the different performance already. As you can see here, I only have been tracking this for 7 days. Sometimes it happens that you don't have data here because you're just not showing the right date. So I know that this is from, the 29th until the 6th of July. I click apply. It's taking a while. And then you can see here the overview. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. And then what I can do is I can click on edit. I can change the name here. Let's say Leica Mobile. I can change the title here as well. Nonetheless, here we still see null. So what we need to do is we need to do the following. We need to go to the setup. And we need to go to the data source and then select the data source that we've previously created. This is one of the 3 connectors that we need to create. I'm going to select topic engine breakdown. Add to report. And it takes a while again. Nonetheless, right now we can also see the topics. I can also do this for the engines. So I'm going to click, I have clicked on the graph. I click on this one. And let's click on engine breakdown metrics. Add to report. And it takes a while again. And let's just go to the next slide already before we were waiting for a long time. So once again, a repetition. We have the template. You click on make a copy. You select the right data source. At the beginning, you select the overall one. Thereafter, we go for the different graphs. We then select like the topic overview or the engine overview. And then here we saw, for example, the null. So we made sure that the correct data source was in there. And here we, for example, right now see the different options. What you can also do is I can add a image. This is always nice for example, the clients. I'm going to go to our logo. I'm going to edit. And then you can, for example, add your specific logo here. Some common blockers that we see coming by. First one, that the app is blocked. Right now, the connector with Data Studio and Rankscale is a community connector. We are in the process of getting it official into the Data Studio marketplace. Nonetheless, this just takes a long time. They're not as responsive as we hoped that they would be. So hopefully within the next 2 weeks, it will be officially there and you don't encounter these blockers anymore. But what happens or what can happen is that you get this one, and I actually expect that you will get this one. Then just click on Advanced. then go to the app name that is unsafe, and then just continue. Or what sometimes also happens, and that is the case here, there is no advanced option, then your IT administrator may need to allow Rankscale as a third-party app, and how this person can do that is via the Google Admin Console, security, and the API controls, and then just gives Rankscale, or like validates Rankscale, and then you can connect with our Data Studio connector. And then the second thing, what we sometimes hear from our clients is, hey, the data is not showing up. Verify that you have selected the right brand ID and that there are no typos in there. Just copy it, paste it, so you skip all these potential failure points. Check the data range. That is something that we already saw within my dashboard. It only had for a few days data. It could be, for example, that your date range is fully not including any data. So make sure that you have selected the right data range. That is something that you can check here. Reconnect the data source after copying the template, and also just check that you're using the correct connector. Some important tips to have more fun with Data Studio: start to do some data blending. When blending data, make sure your dimensions and metrics are formatted the same way to be compatible. That is, for example, one of the reasons why, let's say you have text and you want to get that variable, but the variable is numeric, then of course it will not work. The configuration will not work because it is looking for numbers, but the input is text. Then data sources, pay close attention to the data source level to ensure correct data alignment. Data aggregation, watch out for specific data aggregation rules of Rankscale data. Once again, you just have here a complete overview. I would recommend just copy this and put it in Claude or in whichever AI chat that you're using, and then let it guide you through the potential process if you have some blockers or if you want to create some custom charts. And then data filters, be aware when you copy a template that there might be filters in place. All right. And yeah, once again, this is an annoying one, the data blending every now and then. You think you have it correct, but you don't have it correct. And then a final offer from our side. If you scan this code, you can sign up for Rankscale. And if you use the discount code reporting, you will get 10% off on your first purchase. You can also just go there via the rankscale.ai URL.